Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our monthly Kickstart webinar. We're both very excited to have you here. Today, our session will be on something that's incredibly important in ensuring that at the end of your 6-month placement, you're equipped with the tools you need to have the best possible opportunities for you. But we'll get started with introductions right now. So I'm Tevin, I'm the Kickstart executive here at Pathway CTM. Quite interestingly, I'm a Kickstarter myself, which is quite interesting because I have both sides, I have an understanding of both sides of the initiative, which is pretty cool, I think. I run the learning management system, which we'll get to later on, but it's in short a system that we provided for you to ensure that you're getting the most out of your placement and the most out of your 6 months, that you are a Kickstarter. Rosie, on to you.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, everyone. My name is Rosie, and I'm the events manager here at Pathway CTM. So I work on all of the events from the back end, setting them up, figuring out tickets, things like that. And then I get to host lots of events just like these. Just moving on now to the agenda. So we're going to do an introduction. We just introduced ourselves, and we're going to talk a little bit about Pathway here in just a second. And then we're going to move on to tips and tricks. And then if any of you have questions, we'll move on to a Q&A. And if not, then that'll be the whole session today. So just quickly, how you can communicate today. We have the chat box and the Q&A box. Feel free to put any of your comments in the chat box. And then if you have any questions for us throughout the session, please go ahead and pop them in the Q&A box, and we'll make sure that we get to them at the end. So who are we at Pathway CTM, and what do we do? So Pathway CTM is a company that's made for people that are in school and leaving school. And it is a program that helps people find jobs and apprenticeships and figure out what they want to do after school. So we do that through a number of ways. We do events like these with CV, cover letter, LinkedIn workshops. There's one-on-one mentoring opportunities. We do events with companies, so hour-long kind of insight events where you can hear about the company and what they do. We do work experience days, so that's a full day, either virtually or in person. And then you get work experience to put on your CV. So that's a little bit about Pathway. Tevin, do you want to speak a little bit about the Kickstart program?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rosie. So the Kickstart scheme is, like I mentioned earlier, very briefly, we understand how important personal development is. And so we've created a whole wraparound support for you over your next 6 months or however long left you have on the Kickstart scheme. Again, for our Kickstart scheme, or rather the support we offer, it includes 2 monthly inspiration sessions where we invite industry professionals over and we interview them. And that's a way to provide value to you and understand people that have been in your situation and are in, I suppose, managerial or higher levels in their role, which I think is very, very important. But also we offer, like these, monthly webinars where we teach a range of different employability tips and tools and tricks that can help you become, again, much more employable at the end of your 6-month placement. On our learning management system that we provide for you, we include modules and resources. So it's split up into 2 sections. And our modules basically is, I suppose, a quiz that you go through, and that helps you understand a bit more about your industry and, I suppose, transferable skills and actually tangible strengths and skills you need to ensure that you're a lot more employable at the end of your placement. And of course, our resources where you can access the wealth of different tools that can help you hone in your skills and become much more, I suppose, have the tools you need to ensure that you're moving in the right direction at the end of your 6-month contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tevin. So that's about it for intros right now. We're just going to move on quickly now to the learning outcome. So basically what this session is for is to help you produce a CV that's ready for employability. So we want to give you the tips and tricks and pointers that we have found, that we have heard about, that help employers, or that help you make a CV that is employability ready. So now we're just going to watch this short video on CVs.
a CV is a way of applying for a job and showcasing your prior achievements, be that in education, be that in employment, or generically your kind of hobbies and interests as well. Please don't go over 2 pages. I think it's more than enough across 2 pages. And I think what can help keep that to 2 pages, it's about keeping it relevant. I've probably read hundreds of CVs in previous roles where the company is not the same company that I work for. So people are saying, oh, I really want to work for X organization, which isn't the organization they're actually applying to. And rightly or wrongly, some hiring managers or recruiters will actually discard a CV based upon spelling or grammar. So there's something to be mindful there of check it twice, check it 3 times, just to make sure it's absolutely on point.
What's the average number of seconds or minutes that an employer might look at your CV?
On average, it's about 7 seconds. So first impressions do count for certain when it comes to your CV, and that's why keeping it shorter and really engaging is really, really important. Yeah, I think that personal statement at the top is really, really important, but it's a summary of everything that sits below in the detail around your education, your employment. We're probably all guilty of it. You know, we talk about achievements being part of a sports club, being part of a prefect in school or part of the school council. It's not all about that. Talk about your life experiences, add in there your personal achievements. If that is you once achieved a gold rosette at swimming in your personal time, then pop that down. But if that is also actually you were responsible for organising a street party when the Queen's coronation happened, or whatever that might be, then pop that down as well, because that's an achievement, and that shows what we call transferable skills.
So just after that video, and before we move on to kind of the core tips and tricks about CVs, I just want to encourage you all to check out this template that's on our website. It's a CV template that really walks you through every little thing that you might want to put on your CV. You don't necessarily need to put everything that this says. Interests, if you have a ton of experience and there's not room, interests you could maybe go without. But this is just something that will help you format your CV well. Clearly, this is very clear, very straightforward, and it has every single thing that you may need. So definitely go ahead and check this out on our website, pathwayctm.com. We really encourage you to use this tool. Tevin, just before we move on to kind of the core tips and tricks, I'm wondering, is there anything which you would have known before or when you were writing your first CV?
Yes, and that's a great question, Rosie. When I first started my CV, I had pretty much zero experience. I had zero experience, in a workforce. And so getting a job was really difficult because, I needed something to vouch of. So one thing I wish I could have, I suppose, one thing I wish I could have highlighted more was my transferable skills and things that I enjoy doing. So for transferable skills, it could be anything like I was a captain of my school football team in sixth form. And so, me putting more of an emphasis on leadership and communication, things that employers do want to see on CVs. I wish I would have highlighted that a bit more. And also just really understanding things that I did during my time at school and trying to take, the benefits from it and trying to take things that can be sold, I suppose. So definitely that, but also hobbies or things that I did enjoy doing. Leaving school, I wanted to get into copywriting. And so one thing that I really enjoyed doing back then was writing stories and blogs and poems. That was my thing. I spent countless hours doing it. And I remember just putting it at the bottom of my CV, but looking back at it now, I think it's something that I probably should have emphasized a bit more because I'm wanting to get into the industry. So a tip, or I suppose advice I'd offer would be, put more of an emphasis on your transferable skills, and secondly, based the hobbies that could help you get into the industry of your choice. But Rosie, I have a question for you too. With creating your first CV, people often have different ways of starting it or platforms they use. And I'm quite interested to know if you had any difficulties formatting your first CV.
Yeah, so I'm definitely not a graphic designer by any means. Even Microsoft Word, I find really difficult to actually put anything together. And I didn't know that there were kind of templates like this available on different websites, but I did know that for a few things in school, I'd used a website called Canva, and I knew that Canva had resume templates, tons of different ones. And I'd always learned in school that, and I don't know if this was just because it was my degree and because it's kind of a creative degree, but I actually think this could apply to everyone. They always said, make your resume stand out. Don't just have kind of a boring black and white listed resume. You know, add a pop of color. They said one time a girl that graduated from my program couldn't get a job. No one was looking at her CV. She was applying everywhere. And she just decided one day to print it on bright red paper. And she got hired.
Wow.
And when she was like, why did you hire me? Her boss was like, I just wanted someone fun. So I think adding that kind of creativity to your CV is really important. And like I said, Canva is just an amazing tool. There's no like sponsorship or anything going on. I feel like I'm really selling it to you. It's that fantastic of a tool. It's so straightforward. I think it's easier than Microsoft Word. And you can really do cool things with your CV to make it not, I mean, even this, you know, there's blue on it. It's formatted really well. Even this is a little bit more creative than kind of a typical black and white, some words in bold, just list. So I just think that that's a really cool thing to note.
Absolutely.
So here we're just going to move on now to the tips and tricks of writing a CV. So I'm just going to go through kind of some do's and don'ts about your CV. So things that you absolutely need to include, the number one most important thing to put on your CV is your contact information. Some of these jobs that you're going to be applying to, not to sound scary, but they're going to have 30, 40, 50 applicants, and they're going to have all those CVs in front of them. You could have the best CV in the world, but if they can't contact you, they're not going to go out of their way most of the time to seek you out. So that is absolutely the number one most important thing to put on your CV. Mine's actually at the bottom of my CV, but I would recommend putting it on the top. So your name in bold, big letters, and then right under it, your phone number, your email, and then if you have one, especially now that most CVs are digital, if you have a LinkedIn, I would recommend linking that also in your contact information. And then what do we have? Sorry, I just have a few notes here. I want to make sure I'm getting to everything. Things like a picture of yourself, some people choose to put on, and then date of birth, some people choose to put on. That I actually wouldn't really recommend because a company I used to work for actually told me that if someone puts a picture on their CV, they have to legally like block it out when they're looking at the CV, so that there's no biases or anything like that. And same with birthdays, you know, you don't, it's just not necessary. They don't really need to know how old you are. They can look at your experience and decide if they look at that or not. So those I wouldn't really recommend putting in. And most of you now are out of school. If you had notable grades, I would definitely recommend putting that in. It's really cool. Maybe in 5-10 years, go ahead and take it out. Tevin, I just want to confirm you're still able to hear me.
Yep, I can hear you.
Great. Maybe after 5 or so years, go ahead and take those grades out. But for now, if they were notable, put them in. If maybe you struggled in school and didn't have the best grades, don't put them in, because an employer, you know, it's similar to the date of birth. It just doesn't matter that much to most employers. And then do you need to put your address? So I just said contact information is the most important thing. Address, not so relevant anymore. As long as they have your phone number and your email, you know, they're not going to send a letter to your house. So definitely no need to put your address. And then some things that you really do want to put on your CV. Previous jobs or volunteer opportunities, obviously, super important. So what I recommend doing, and as you can see it here, putting in bold your job, the company, and then also the dates that you were there. And then under it, listing things that you did there. In those lists, what I always recommend, you heard in the video, employers take an average of 7 seconds looking at a CV. That's no time at all. So really make sure that those points are clear, to the point. You don't need any fluff in those points. Quantitative if possible. You know, if you were maybe a head barista at a cafe, say I managed 3 people per shift twice a week. Super clear, super straightforward, instead of just saying something like I managed people on shift. You know, it's more clear if you add those numbers in. So that was always recommended to me by professors at university. I would really recommend making it quantitative and straight to the point. You need to add your education in. That's really important, you know, your highest level of education. And then anything that's going to make you stand out. So like Tevin said earlier, it's not only about the work experience or volunteer experience you have. I'm someone who's worked since I was 16. I've had probably more jobs than I can count, but not all of those are on my CV. I'm an event manager, like I said earlier. In school, we did this big project. It was a semester long. You know, I started an event from scratch, fundraised, had to market the event, had to put on the event, had to design the whole event. That's one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. So that's actually more important than some of my previous work experience. So I go ahead and put that on. It can be school projects. People aren't looking down on those. It can be, I was the captain of my football team. It can be I took care of my siblings on the weekend. This is what it taught me, or after school. It can be anything like that, because people see that. Something that I've actually heard quite a lot is that seeing that you're a waitress or a waiter is one of the most attractive things on a CV, because you have to put up with everything when you're a waitress or a waiter.
Yeah.
It's fast moving. People can be difficult. That is what I've heard from multiple people. That is one of the best things that you can put on your CV. But yeah, like I said, it doesn't have to be work experience, just relevant experience.
Yeah.
And then with those experiences, in terms of kind of how you list them, you can do them either by relevance or by date. I recommend by relevance because, like we said a couple times, 7 seconds. They're going to look at the first few first. You know, if your most recent experience wasn't super relevant to the job, that might turn them away. If maybe, you know, your least recent experience is the most relevant, they might not even get to it. So I always recommend listing by relevance, and you can switch it around depending on the job you're applying for. It doesn't have to be, you can have kind of a base resume that you move around depending on what you're applying for. And then, sorry, Tevin.
No, I was going to say that's a really great point. I haven't really considered, you know, by relevance. I suppose leaving school, my teachers have always told me about doing it in chronological order, or at least, you know, in terms of when I finished a job. But like, you know, just watching the video, 7 seconds is not a long time. And so I suppose, you know, after this even, I'll look at making my most relevant experience on the top, because I don't know, I haven't really considered that, which is really interesting. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. That's always worked well for me. And like I said, you can change it. So I spent a year working as a dance teacher, which for most event jobs hasn't been that relevant. When I was applying to this job, I knew that I would be working with students, kind of doing events for students. So I went ahead and put that back on. And that was one of the biggest things that they highlighted during my interview, actually. They were asking me so much about that specific experience because it was relevant to this. And I put it pretty high too on my resume. So that's what, and it was a few years back, but I would really recommend, yeah, doing it by relevance. And then lastly, sorry, Tevin, what?
Oh, no, it's okay. It's just very interesting.
Okay. And then lastly, what have you done that has made you stand out? Have you had a volunteer experience where maybe you won an award? On our work experience days, we give certificates at the end of them to put on your CVs and LinkedIn. And if an employer is looking at 2 people with the same experience, but one of them has this extra certificate, or they see they went out of their way to do this volunteer experience, that's who they're going to pick. So anything that might make you stand out, you know, really anything that you can think of. I can't think of everything that it could be off the top of my head, but anything that might be relevant and just proves that you're a hard worker, that you're a dedicated and passionate person, put it on your CV. It's not going to hurt. I mean, you don't want to crowd your CV too much, but it's not going to hurt to put it on. By the way, another note. So in the video, they said that he wouldn't recommend having your CV more than 2 pages. And I do believe that everyone that will be watching this is either my age or younger. I'm 23. So I actually learned from an employer that at this age, absolutely you shouldn't be more than one page. The likelihood of someone at this level having more than a one-page CV is just really unlikely. So I went ahead and made my one page. It all fits. Like I said, Canva makes it really easy to fit everything. So yeah, make it one page. Don't stress about making it 2 pages or feel like you have to have all this experience to fill all these pages. No, one page, that's all they want to see. An employer probably wouldn't even look at a second page, to be fair. So you know what? I think that is all the notes that I have. The last thing that I would say is if you do make a theme for your CV, when you're making a cover letter, do something similar. So for example, mine at the top, I have my name in this font and I have it highlighted in green, like a light green. And then on my CV, I use the exact same font, or my cover letter, excuse me, exact same font, exact same highlight, just to make it all cohesive. So I would really recommend doing that too, if you are going to do a design. So now Tevin is going to take it away and talk to you guys about the personal statement.
Yeah, thank you, Rosie. I suppose the personal statement is my favorite part of the CV. A personal statement gives you the chance to show off your strengths and skills and your experiences and you'll share your career goals. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that. Rosie and I had a conversation yesterday about, personal statements and how sometimes they're not included in perhaps different regions or countries. And I suppose I was taken back by that because I suppose in the UK in particular, or, speaking for myself, a personal statement's always been, 4 sentences or less where I can just showcase my skills and sell myself really, apart from my cover letter. So for example, I'll give an example of me. Working in business or working in startups, especially in growth-oriented roles, it means, I'm oftentimes, taking on a lot of different roles and responsibilities working in small teams. I've created my own startups in the past, and whilst they will probably get to that in my CV and on my experiences, putting in my personal statement really, I think, just goes to show the experiences I have, but I suppose telling it in a different way. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that. So for example, I mentioned community. That's been a core focus on my career endeavors thus far, understanding how to bring people together, which actually, was spotted on my CV when I was interviewing for this role. So again, just understanding, how to sell yourself, how to sell your experiences, other than what it mentions in your experiences on your CV is really interesting. Also, another way you can, sell yourself in your personal statement is, I suppose, sharing your passion for the sector or that role. So it could be anything like, I'm really excited about blank, or I'm keen to get started in blank. I think there's a lot of beauty in that also, because again, showing passion and initiative and, wanting to get started, this Kickstart idea. So I think there's something definitely in that. Rosie, would you mention anything else you can put in a personal statement as well?
Yeah, just kind of going off what you just said a little bit. If you're applying for a role that you don't necessarily have experience in, say digital marketing, for example, that's your time to also put, I'm really excited to learn about this. I really am passionate about, the things around this, and I want to learn more about this. At our stage in the career, or your stage in your career, employers don't expect you to know everything. You haven't been in the working world for 10 plus or whatever years. So just emphasizing that you're passionate and that you really want to learn is something that we would really recommend putting, I think, in personal statements.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. Again, personal statements is, other than your cover letter, best place to sell yourself. You want to make it short and concise, straight to the point. Again, we only have 7 seconds, with our CV in front of an employer. So we want to make sure that it's just punchy and straight to the point, and shares, I suppose, your relevant experience and skills and strengths and passions and all of these things that can help you, at least get to the interview stage. So again, making it short and concise is very, very key.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tevin. Just one last thing I wanted to add that I don't think I emphasized enough too is make sure there's no typos or grammar errors in your CV. That is red flag. You don't pay attention to detail. Spend a lot of time, ask other people to look. I know you can kind of stare at something and just not see any. I remember I sent out a CV where I think I spelled receive wrong with the I and the E flip. And I think I sent it to like 30 places and I didn't even get a no from anyone. I just didn't hear back. And I don't blame them. I shouldn't have sent out a CV with a typo. So really, really do make sure that you're checking it again, showing it to maybe your teachers, the people that you live with, your friends. Maybe if you have a part-time job now, your boss there could help you. That's like number one, really make sure before you send out that CV, there's no spelling or grammar errors. So Tevin, it doesn't look like we have any questions for today. So do you have any kind of final notes or final thoughts?
Yes, I'd say I think it's important that you're offering value, you know, to an employer. And the best way to do that is, again, sell yourself and showcase what you can offer them as well, rather than, you know, what they can just offer you. I think that's a really nice way of looking at it. So again, you know, highlighting your transferable skills and showing whether it's anything from communication to you volunteering in a homeless shelter and you having empathy for a cause, showing that you can offer something value to them really helps. And yeah, I think that's a really interesting, I suppose, perspective to have, because I didn't have that perspective until, I suppose, 3 years ago when that suddenly changed my shift. So yeah, definitely that for sure. How about you? Do you have anything?
I couldn't agree more. Having that mind shift of you're offering a lot to an employee, like you're not getting you are getting a job, but they're not just giving everything to you. You're giving them, you know, your skills, your passion, your work ethic, your drive. So have that mindset when you're writing your CV, and you can be a little bit cocky in it. I mean, it's your time to sell yourself. You know, don't be shy, put your experience, just put it all on the table. And then also, if you would like, you're more than welcome to email your CV in to student@Pathway CTM, this email right here. And that is Max on our team, and he would be more than happy to look over your CV and give you any tips and tricks and guidance on how you can better your CV. I know personally, when I was in university, I showed my CV to every single professor I had, and every single time they had tons of notes. So, you know, it's an ever-growing kind of document, and it should be, because your experiences are always changing. Great. So thank you all so much for being here today. Tevin, I think we can go ahead and wrap up here.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you everyone for watching this too.
Yep. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Tevin. Bye.
Bye-bye.